Now, you all have heard a lot about this documentary, The Undefeated. I'm telling you, it is a great documentary. I know this firsthand because I'm in it. And the man in charge, the filmmaker, is Steve Bannon. He's been everywhere, but he hasn't been here. And if you haven't been here, you haven't been anywhere. Steve, how are you, my friend?
Mark, I'm doing very well tonight. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, tell everybody about this, because I have to tell you, when you showed it to me, I mean, obviously I'm in it, but when you showed it to me, I didn't know most of this stuff about Sarah Palin.
Well, you know, I always thought that the meme out there has been set by the mainstream media is that the Governor Palin is Caribou Barbie, she's a bimbo, and she's an ideologue, and the facts were very different. I thought there was empirical evidence of her time as mayor of Wasilla, and particularly governor of Alaska, that told a true story, and that's the story I thought America had not heard. And it was a story of a working class person who came from very humble origins, with a father from a family of school teachers, with a blue collar husband, working on a fishing boat. And 20 years later, she's one of the most influential women in America. You know, she didn't come from the American aristocracy like, you know, President Bush and Al Gore and John Huntsman and Mitt Romney. She started with as obscure as anybody in your listening audience, and I just thought it was a story about America. And AMC Theaters and Cinedigm and Arc Entertainment, who are not political organizations, those are Hollywood capitalists, saw the same thing. I mean, their point to me was that this story transcends politics and tells us about America in the 21st century, and that's why that's why they took the picture, and that's why I think the picture is having initially today. We're very, very happy with what the reaction is.
Well, now, as a matter of fact, it starts today. Tell me what towns it's in.
Well, we decided, you know, that the exhibitors and the distribution company wanted to start it kind of tight in certain markets all across the country, but only 10 markets. It's Atlanta, Georgia, Orlando, Oklahoma City. It's in Indianapolis, Kansas City, Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, Denver, and Orange County, California. Starting 10 markets, 10 theaters, and because the companies that's doing it's not like a Michael Moore film that has a major studio and $25 million in P&A, or Al Gore that had Paramount and $15 million P&A. This company's going to put, literally this weekend, I don't think there was any P&A put in back of the film. I think it was a couple $100,000.
Now, what's P&A?
P&A is the marketing dollars, you know, to buy the TV advertisement. This film's had no TV advertisement. I think it's had no radio. It's really been social networking and just, you know, people reading reviews of it. So it's really a bootstrap. But I think the initial response is what I'm hearing from the distributors, that they're very, very pleased with the response so far. My understanding is it's gotten a standing ovation virtually at every showing, starting at the 10, 11 o'clock this morning across the country in virtually every theater.
Now, if people want to know exactly where the theater is, where do they go to find that at?
If you go to the website, theundefeatedmovie.com, you'll get to see all the locations, and you can also vote on AM. They click right through to AMC. You can vote to get it into your areas. But if it does well this weekend and enough votes, it'll start to expand throughout the country. You know, Mark, as I told you when I talked to you about this film, I've now talked to people coming out of theaters now in 2 different cities. You end this thing with a real bang, and it's the first time people have ever seen you in a movie. And I got to tell you, I think you've got. I got to talk to your radio guys. I think you've got another career ahead of you. I am tired. By the way, I'm tired of people saying Mark Levin has a face for radio, because I have proven with the right lighting and a little makeup
that I do have a face for radio.
No, I'm telling you, Mark. I'm telling you, the ending, the coda of this film, with you and Tammy Bruce and Andrew Breitbart, is really has people. It's quite gripping, and it's what people are talking about when they come out of there, and and Governor Palin's rise and the whole coda. So it's a controversial ending, and I think people are really, at least the initial responses coming out, people were very, very, very enthusiastic.
Well, Steve, let me ask you this: when did you first decide to do this movie?
You know, Mark, I did Generation Zero about the financial meltdown, and if you look at the Kabuki Theater, it's going on this week in Washington. I've been listening to your show.
Right.
I'm a listener every night. We're destroying this. This thing's not about deficits. We're destroying an entire generation in front of us. People under 30 years old, I hope they understand that your listening audience, are literally having their futures destroyed. And I determined, a couple of years ago when I made Generation Zero, I wanted to, help look for solutions. And the Tea Party, to me, and the rise of the Tea Party, was the great salvation. It was the continuation. I'm the official
Amen.
filmmaker for President Reagan's ranch and for a study center for the 100th birthday, and I got that off of doing his film, In the Face of Evil. And I'm a huge believer in the Reagan Revolution, and guys like you who are the foot soldiers of that, are obviously getting older. And, the Tea Party I saw, because I studied President Reagan so much and made 2 films about him, I saw the Tea Party as a direct lineage of the Reagan Revolution. And I said, this could be the solution that helps save the country. And so I made Fire from the Heartland, with your friend Dave Bossie, who was the producer, and it was starred, it was Congressman Bachman and women of the Tea Party movement. And I saw Governor Palin at that time, and I thought this woman is a woman of extraordinary accomplishments. Just her story hasn't been told, and she achieved so much in Alaska, and she's such a enervating force in back of the Tea Party, and that's really what made me want to do it.
Now, you decided to do this on your own. I just want people to understand this. This was not done by Sarah PAC. This was not a political enterprise. This is you doing this.
Governor Palin's PAC approached me about doing some, after I played Fire from the Heartland right after the 2010 election at a convention for Palin, people called Conservatives for Palin, and I got contacted by Rebecca Mansour and Tim Crawford from their PAC a couple days later to do some YouTube videos of some short vignettes. And I said, look, I'm 57 years old, but I've got an idea of a film I want to do. My partner, Glenn Evans, we talked, and you met Glenn, and I talked, and I said, Glenn, I think there's a huge movie here. We decided, Glenn's my financing partner. We put up all the money. We actually told the Palin camp and the PAC, has said, we want no involvement, no creative control. I do not even want to interview the governor. I had a list at the time of the people in Alaska. I said, look, I need to meet these civil servants called the Magnificent Seven. They're the key that picks the lock to the story. I've got to meet those guys. I said, with that, and they helped me round up, guys in Alaska I didn't know, like the civil servants that had resigned. And then I knew from day one I wanted you and Andrew Breitbart and Tammy Bruce. I really wanted you to, because I could pull the camera back and set Governor Palin's career in historical perspective. And so I kind of had early on, and that's why I reached out to you, is I knew the guys I wanted in as commentators. And so I had a vision of how to do this and not interview Governor Palin. She's not interviewed. I didn't want to interview. In fact, I told the PAC, I said if she wanted to be interviewed, I wouldn't probably do the movie. I wanted to do it with footage that was live at the time, that put the audience in the seat of Sarah Palin as she was at the mayor of Wasilla and as she was governor and as she was the spiritual and inspirational leader of the Tea Party. And I think, as I've seen the reviews coming in, the commentary, I think the style worked, and I think the film works.
Well, it is a great film, and I'm going to tell you, and Rebecca is a wonderful lady. Let me tell you something, and I think I say this in the film. I'm not, it's in the film. I was following Sarah Palin, but my daughter, she's at some event a mile or two from here. She didn't know me, and I didn't really know her. She goes to this event, and there's 25,000 people there in a town of 25,000 people. And she came back, and she said, Dad, this Sarah Palin from Alaska? I said, yes. She said, she's the real deal. You're going to love this lady, because my daughter's a Reaganite, has been all her life. And that's really what kind of turned me on to following this. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I know. That's actually that anecdote you tell is in the film, and I think it's very powerful. That's what happened at those rallies during the McCain campaign for those early weeks in September, and that's the predicate for the Tea Party movement. I mean, those rallies were really where people looked around, like your daughter, and said, you know what, I'm not alone. There are other people out there that think like me, and that was the beginning of the Tea Party movement.
And I do think, I don't care what anybody else says, particularly the establishment, she does have she has characteristics like Reagan. Absolutely. People lie about Reagan. They make it as if he was part of the establishment. Reagan had to fight like hell. People forget he ran 3 times in Republican primaries. He had to beat the establishment candidate. He stood strongly on conservative principles. He spoke out on conservative principles. He was considered by the establishment an outsider. And I think it's very important for people to understand that Palin has those same qualities. I don't care what all these know-nothings say inside the Beltway. I know what I know and what I see. All right, my friend.
One thing I'd like to, Ben Howe at Red State wrote a great review today, but one of the things he said at the end, he turned to his wife at the end of it, and he said he was ashamed. He was ashamed of himself. And his wife said the same thing, that as conservatives, they had bought into the mainstream media meme. And one thing he said in there, Mark, which I think the audience ought to hear, and I think that's one of the reasons I wanted you in this film. It was Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin and Sean Hannity and Andrew Breitbart. You four guys have stood tall the entire time, and I got to tell you, if we're to take our narrative back and never allow this to happen again, we all have to stand as tall as you guys did. So I appreciate you being in the film. I want to, I want to be your manager when you go on to bigger things in Hollywood. Just remember the little guys. Just remember the little guys you started with, okay?
Hey, Steve, you're not a little guy. And God bless you, my friend. Steve Bannon,
thank you, Mark.
film maker. Tell everybody again what the website is.
TheUndefeatedMovie.com.
Everybody, you got to see it. I'm going to tell you, you're not only going to have, if you're skeptical, have your mind changed. You are going to be ashamed that you haven't defended this lady against these vicious attacks. Steve, thanks again, man, and good luck all weekend long.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it, sir.
God bless.